Hey guys. This is part 2 of What If Naruto Was Sasori's Disciple. Hit like and subscribe if you like this one, and also please check the author in the description. Let's start. Chapter 4 Outcasts. Midarashi Anko ran after her prey, darting through the deserted alleys like a cat after a particularly tasty mouse. That blonde brat had chose a wrong bar to fill with water. They didn't have her favorite brand of sake this week, so she was already cranky, even without being soaked to the bone because of some juvenile prank. This Naruto, was it? Yes, only the Kyuubi container dressed in clothes like that. He was a perfect punching bag to vent her frustrations on. She had to give the brat some credit though. He was fast and knew Konoha like the back of his hand. The other two Jonin gave up the chase 5 minutes ago. She didn't think a little kid could navigate the various dead-end streets and trash-lined alleys with such speed. She sped up the pace, tired of the chase. She propelled herself on a nearby roof and overtook the blonde, jumping down on the path in front of him and forcing him to veer into the alley to his left. She was mildly surprised when he didn't slow down. Considering his extensive knowledge of Konoha street layouts, surely he knew that alley was a dead end. She sped off after him, deciding she doesn't care. It took all of the 4 seconds till they came upon the wall blocking off the path. It was far too high for the brat to jump over, and no pre-graduate knows how to walk over walls, so this was the end. Her heart quickened when she considered what she was going to do with the kid once she catches him. Should she cut something off? To her surprise, the blonde didn't even slow down. Instead, he threw a couple of kunai at the wall, and used them as makeshift steps to scale the wall. Anko hissed in frustration. The kid was shrewd. It annoyed her. She was shrewd too, so why didn't she thought of that? She jumped over the wall in one fluid arc and threw a kunai at the fleeing blonde. She aimed to his right calf, just enough to slow him down but nothing lethal. She missed. Anko doesn't miss. Not against a little kid in an orange jumpsuit, she doesn't. Meaning the kid actually dodged. That was almost as ridiculous. He had his back turned to her. There is no way he could have seen her attack. She was pretty sure he wasn't a Hyuga. She could have dodged that, true, but she would have noticed the attack by the sound it makes as it flies through the air. Even if your hearing was sensitive enough, you can only get that kind of skill with practice. Lots and lots of practice. There is no way this snotling could have encountered that many thrown projectiles, is there? Not really thinking, she threw another kunai, this one aimed right at the back of his head. The moment she let the kunai fly, it hit her what she just did. She just threw to kill, on a little kid that didn't even graduate from the academy. She stumbled in shock for a fraction of a second, but the blonde just tilted his head to the side, letting the kunai whiz past him. That gave her pause. On one side, she was glad she didn't end up killing him. That would cause so much paperwork. But on the other hand, he just dodged a kunai thrown at the back of his head. Her kunai! This meant. Anko laughed. She laughed and laughed, even as she reached into her kunai pouch and pulled out a whole stack of deadly metal objects. This meant she doesn't have to hold back anymore. Oh, this was going to be grand. Her psychotic laughter seemed to spur the boy to run faster, amusing Anko even more. And an amused Anko is a scary Anko. The kid dodged kunai after kunai, though he got nicked on his left shoulder twice. Only a fabric cut, but Anko was experienced enough to deduce things from that. The kid didn't have any systematic style, it seemed, just improvised maneuvers driven into him through intensive exposure to projectiles thrown at him. He didn't know how to move his upper body properly, leaving his arms exposed, and he tended to move to his left when dodging. She licked her lips and aimed her next kunai at the blonde's left arm, and was rewarded by a yelp from the brat as the kunai cut into his forearm. The kid dived into the street to his right, heading for the market district. Anko snorted. If he enters the crowd, she won't be able to make pot shots at him. She needed to end this. The kid was good at dodging, but some things cannot be dodged. She grinned psychotically and threw a wide-area hail of kunai in his direction. The boy dived to the side, snatching a trash can lid in the process, and using it as a makeshift shield. 2 kunai dived deep into the metal but were neutralized. The blonde dropped the lid without a second thought and ran onward. The kid did manage to break into the market district, disappearing into the crowd. Anko cursed and jumped on a nearby roof to scan the teeming mass of people. It should be trivial to find someone dressed in glaring orange, but she could not find anyone. She was frantically inspecting the crowd and getting more annoyed every second when it occurred to her that she's being stupid. Orange clothes weren't such a crippling weakness when the perfect disguise is only one transformation technique away. She tried to spot any suspicious characters and quickly found a nervous-looking girl with flowing brown hair trying to slip out of the crowd on the other side of the market. "Got you, you little shit." The look of surprise on the girl's face as Anko smashed her foot into it was absolutely priceless. For a second Anko was worried she hit the wrong person, but then the girl poofed in a cloud of smoke and an orange-clad blonde hit the ground, rolling pitifully into a stack of trash cans. He got up quicker than Anko would have guessed, holding his hand to his bloody nose. "Crazy lady!" he screeched. "What the hell is wrong with you? You could have killed me." "Please," said Anko. "If I wanted you dead you would be." That was just a light tap. The blonde removed his hand from his nose and thrusted his bloody palm towards her. "This is not a light tap. I think you broke my nose." "No, I didn't. I've seen enough broken noses to tell. Besides, you deserved it." "What on earth gave you an idea to flood a Jonin bar anyway?" The blonde muttered something about crazy ladies under his breath. Anko thought it was cute. Most people would use the word bitch somewhere in there, but the kid studiously avoided using any naughty words. Hell, he called her a lady. A crazy lady, but still. "Come on, kid, you're buying me dango." "What? Why should I do that? You led me on a chase across the entire village. Be grateful I haven't castrated you." Anko threw a napkin to Naruto so he can wipe his face somewhat, and then dragged him off to her favorite dango stand. The kid made very little fuss as she set about eating her heavenly menu. She noticed the blonde was not only nursing his nose but also the arm she cut with her kunai. "Oh, don't be a baby," snickered Anko. "It's just a shallow cut. It burns and I feel a little sick." "You poisoned that kunai, didn't you?" Anko paused. "Sorry. I keep them in different pouches but sometimes they get mixed up. It's just wasp vine extract, I know. Since I'm not on the ground, lying in my own vomit, I'm guessing it's been at least a week since you applied it. It loses potency fast in air." Anko stopped chewing for a second, listening to the kid. The brat was just full of surprises. "How did you know that?" "I've read a bit about poisons. And I had that particular one used on me before." Anko continued with her eating. The fact that he had a knockout poison used on him was mildly disconcerting, but the blonde had said it as if it was the most normal thing in the world, so she decided not to pursue the subject. "Now I know how old man feels every time he takes me over at Ichiraku's," said Naruto unhappily as he watched the dango sticks pile up. Anko looked at him curiously. "Is old man who I think it is? If you think old man Hokage, then yes." Anko couldn't stop from snickering. "The kid called Sarutobi an old man? You call him that to his face? Of course, you're an interesting kid, brat. I'll let you buy me dango next week too." Naruto glared at her. "You say that as if you're doing me a favor. Why would I want to do something like that? I'm sexy? I'm 10, crazy lady. What's your?" Anko looked at the brat curiously as he suddenly stopped, as if he realized something. "You know what, crazy lady? I could buy you dango every week," said the blonde, grinning evilly. Anko didn't like that smile. "In exchange for what?" asked Anko crankily. "Teach me," she snorted. "Don't you have the academy for that?" "No. Most instructors just ignore me." She looked at him suspiciously. She could understand him. The instructors at the academy ignored him because he was the QB container, and they ignored her because she was a total nobody. Until Orochimaru took her under his wing, of course, and that ended up in disaster. Truthfully, she was a bit flattered that he asked her, of all people, to teach him, well, anything. People were either freaked out by her or disgusted with her attitude. Hell, she nearly broke his nose less than an hour ago. She devoured her last dango and motioned the blonde to pay for her meal. "Meet me here next week at the same time and we'll see." Naruto collapsed on the ground and closed his eyes, his stamina completely spent. The dust from the explosion bit into his eyes, but he could hear the slithering of a giant snake as it approached. Damn that psychotic woman, her summons, her seemingly limitless supply of kunai, and her thrice-damned explosive notes. And this is supposed to the initial testing. "Hey brat," Anko's voice called out to his left, and he felt a sharp kick explode in his side. "I guess your stamina does have limits, huh?" "Screw you," Naruto panted. "Heh," was all she said. It took him 3 weeks and a whole lot of dangos to convince Anko that she should try teaching him, and now he was starting to regret it. This initial testing had taken the better part of the afternoon, and consisted of Anko trying to murder him. He had to use every trick he had, and while he knew that Anko wasn't actually going all out on him, she was certainly more serious than anyone he ever fought. He didn't know whether to be outraged or flattered that she felt he could withstand such onslaught and live. "Well, brat, after surveying your skills, I have to say you're not too shabby, but one thing is glaringly obvious to me, your kunai handling sucks. Seriously, who the hell taught you that rubbish? No one. I just practice. It's not like there is some sort of science behind throwing kunai. Evidently that was the wrong thing to say, because a kunai slicked his cheek open the moment he was finished. He was going to shout at her but found a kunai pressing into his neck and Anko crouched over him, whispering into his ear. What was that, brat? And nothing. Nothing. The pressure on his neck disappeared and Naruto found himself staring at Anko's smiling face. Okay then, let's talk. Story time, yay, Naruto nodded, aware that it wasn't a suggestion. First of all, began Anko, kunai aren't just for throwing. If you just wanted things to throw, there are specialized throwing knives that serve much better for that. A kunai is an amazingly versatile weapon. A piece of art. Naruto resisted the urge to groan. It was Sasori and his puppets all over again. A kunai is lightweight, easily concealable, and fits perfectly between the ribs of annoying people you want to kill. It is sturdy and difficult to break, allowing it to be used effectively against vastly heavier weaponry. It is balanced for throwing and has a hole in the end that you can tie a rope or an explosive tag onto. You can use it as tool, a piece of a trap setup, or makeshift steps to scale a wall and escape a crazy woman chasing after you. They are, in short, amazing, and you'll be learning all about it on your meetings. Oh come on, protested Naruto. You can teach me something better than that. Using kunai is so pedestrian? Offered Anko. If it makes you feel any better, I won't be teaching you just how to handle a kunai. You'll learn how to handle all common ninja equipment, explosive tags, smoke bombs, wires, and traps. You'll be thanking me later. Naruto looked at her incredulously. Why? What's so special about all that stuff? TCH, Anko scoffed. Honestly, academy students these days. Look, a wimpy little kid like you can't do shit against adults when it comes to taijutsu and you have next to no chakra reserves. The only way you're going to survive against other ninja is either through genjutsu or weapons. And you don't look like a genjutsu type to me. Really, weapons are awesome. They're very lethal, even in the hands of someone like you. Yes, well, said Naruto without much enthusiasm. I have just one issue with all this. I have massive chakra reserves. So you can go ahead and teach me some actual techniques instead, said Anko, rubbing her chin thoughtfully, probably just to annoy Naruto. How should I say this? No. Oh come on. Nope, not happening. That would be putting far too much effort into this, all things considering. There is no sense in getting attached to an academy student to that extent. It's like getting attached to goldfish, no life expectancy. Come back to me when you're at least a chunin if you want to learn some of my techniques. Naruto glared at her. So much for a vote of confidence. He sighed. All this work, and she wasn't even willing to teach him any techniques. Total waste of his time. Plus, teaching techniques is much less fun than what I have in mind, continued Anko. Naruto suddenly paled. He didn't think he liked Anko's interpretation of fun. And with the carrot of awesome techniques gone, listen, Anko-san, said Naruto nervously, rubbing the back of his head. This whole thing seems to have been a big mistake. Why don't we just go our separate ways and… Naruto stopped as Anko started laughing. It wasn't a nice laugh. She snatched him by his shoulder and clasped down hard on his collarbone, causing Naruto to suppress a scream of pain. Oh Naru-chan, Anko said, leaning in so she could whisper into Naruto's ear. Didn't anyone teach you not to do things halfway? You can't leave a girl dry like that, just when the things are heating up. You've got me all hot and sweaty, and you're not going anywhere until the climax. Ah, said Naruto, squirming in pain. The way she phrased it, it was wrong on so many levels it wasn't even funny. I'm not sure what you're implying here, Anko-san, but… Anko suddenly let go of him and stepped back. For a moment Naruto thought he was safe, but then the woman from hell pulled out a stack of kunai out of her pouch. The purplish sheen on them told Naruto that they were all coated with poison. His eyes widened. Run little piggy, said Anko with a crazed grin. I want to hear you squeal. What else could he do? He ran. His heart was beating too fast, and no matter how much deep breaths he took he couldn't calm it down. He took a tentative step forward, nervously scanning the dense foliage around him looking for any sign of his opponent, or his opponent's allies. The crickets in this forest were unusually loud, and their singing was drowning out Naruto's sensitive hearing, making it difficult to hear his opponent coming. A low whistle was the only warning he got of an incoming attack. Only his trained reactions forged through his sessions with Sasori and Anko allowed him to jump sideways to evade a kunai barrage and then turn around fast enough to deflect a kunai thrust at his back. His opponent stood in front of him, silent and impassive, biding his time for a strike. Shino was good. A minute later, Naruto was wondering if sharing all his insight about weapon handling with Shino was such a good idea. Shino had apparently practiced just as fervently as Naruto did, and he had more physical bulk than Naruto, allowing him to put more weight behind his attacks. Naruto thought that he would have advantage over Shino because he was exposed to a vicious opponent like Anko, but clearly Shino had someone just as skilled to practice with. He should have known really. Aburame are a fairly large clan, so there's bound to be a weapons specialist among them. His ego somewhat hurt, Naruto decided to spice things up. Without warning, the fingers in Naruto's free hand lit up and a glowing chakra scalpel sprung to life. Naruto swiped at Shino's shoulder, going for a shallow cut. The terms of the fight stated that the first person to draw blood wins, but though the scalpel bit into Naruto's opponent, something was wrong. It went too easily through clothes and flesh, and there was no blood. Shino in front of him collapsed into Kikai, who rushed towards Naruto to engulf him. Crap! Naruto reached into his pouch and threw a couple of gas pellets at the rapidly approaching mass of insects before jumping back. The knockout gas billowed forth, dazing the mass of Kikai, which collapsed on the ground, but Naruto accidentally inhaled some of it too. He could feel his head getting dizzy and tried to banish the feeling. The poisons Sasori had been teaching him were certainly useful, but it was very tricky to use them without accidentally poisoning yourself as well. Of course, puppeteers like Sasori could cheat by having the puppet use poisons instead of themselves. A puppet couldn't poison itself, so it could use poisons a lot more freely than a flesh and blood human could. He has to ask Anko how she uses poisons without harming herself in the process. Despite Naruto's attempt to shrug off the daze induced by the knockout gas and reorient himself, it was too late. He felt a distinct feeling of kunai pressed against his neck, and he knew it was over. The blade slid gently across the skin of his neck, drawing blood but doing no real damage. "I win," intoned Shino solemnly behind him. Naruto sighed, batting Shino's arm away and leaning against a tree for support. "Damn it, Shino, no matter what I do you're always so much beyond me it's not even funny. I couldn't even win against a damn Kikai clone. Just because the difference in our strength isn't shrinking doesn't mean you're not improving," said Shino. "Frankly, I'm a bit aggravated that you think I'll just sit back and let you catch up to me at your leisure. It's only logical for me to advance as well." Naruto laughed. "Lighten up, Shino, I'm just a sore loser, that's all. I have to say though, you're more amazing with each passing day. You stealthy enough that not even my ears can pick you up, you can do Kikai clones. And I'm pretty sure that thing at the end was a genjutsu you caught me with." Naruto's hand glowed as he healed up the cut on his throat. "You're just as full of surprises," said Shino. "Your medic nin abilities are advancing by leaps and bounds every time we meet. I still don't understand why you're keeping it a secret. The village needs medic nins." We'll see after I become a chunin," said Naruto. "Sorry about your Kikai, by the way. They'll be fine in an hour or so." "They'll be fine in a matter of minutes," countered Shino. "Aburame bodies can purge Kikai of weak poisons very quickly, as long as we pull back afflicted Kikai back into our bodies." "Oh." Naruto sat down and at the base of the tree, and Shino followed his example and settles on the grass nearby. Naruto allowed a few minutes to pass in silence, resting and enjoying the sounds of the forest. "How are your sealing studies going?" asked Shino. Naruto grinned and pulled out a scroll case, spreading out a variety of paper tags and smaller scrolls on the grass between him and Shino. "So the exploding tags are actually quite simple," said Naruto in an upbeat voice. "The central array is basically simple chakra storage filled to the brink of overloading, and these adjacent arrays are smaller chakra storages connected with the central storage. When activated, the adjacent storage arrays start pushing chakra into the central array until it overloads. Boom! And that's it really. All these other arrays are just safety features to make sure the tags don't explode in your pocket, or something. But this one over here," Naruto spent nearly an hour gushing about his creations to Shino. The Aburame made for a pleasant audience. If he was disinterested, he didn't show it. This was in contrast to Sasori, who always had some complaint for Naruto. While appreciating Sasori's honesty and desire to help Naruto get better, sometimes he just wanted an appreciating audience. "It's amazing," said Shino finally. "Achieving this level of skill on a subject as complex as sealing in such little time." Is not that amazing," said Naruto, rubbing the back of his head sheepishly. "I beg to differ," said Shino. "It is widely known that learning sealing takes years, even decades, and requires considerable mental faculties. Only if you do it the stupid way," said Naruto. "Most ninja want results right away, so instead of studying the theory and mechanics behind sealing they just memorize the existing standardized arrays. However, Doing that requires you to have extremely good memory, because you're learning the arrays through sheer effort and no insight. For these people, every array is its own thing, to be memorized separately. The path of instant gratification is also the hardest one in the long term. Naruto nodded to himself. He had combined one of Iruka's lectures with Sasori's remarks, producing something that sounded very teacher-like to his opinion. He even got the formal tone right. He was sure that, had Shino's not been wearing his darkened glasses, he would see the Aburame rolling his eyes at Naruto's teacher impersonation. Shino took one of the small storage scrolls Naruto made, turning it in his hand. It's very interesting. It's a pity I'll never be able to master the field. Eh? Asked Naruto. What are you talking about, Shino? I can teach you any time you want. I'm afraid you can't. I lack the necessary chakra capacity. Well, I'm sure there is a way for you to increase your chakra capacity somehow, said Naruto. There is, but none that would work on Aburame, said Shino. In reality, all Aburame have large chakra reserves because our Kekai are constantly draining us of chakra to feed themselves. Unfortunately, 80% of our reserves are contractually given to our Kekai, so in practical terms our chakra reserves end up rather small. There is no way around that fact. That is why Aburame concentrate on Taijutsu and Genjutsu, as both use very little chakra. And our clan abilities granted by the Kekai, of course. Oh, said Naruto. He never considered the idea that there are drawbacks to being a living Kekai colony. The Kekai are also extremely vulnerable to any elemental technique except earth, but fire especially, and due to the way insects breathe they are sensitive to airborne poisons like the ones you used, continued Shino. Because of these weaknesses and our low chakra capacity, Aburame have long been considered unsuited for direct combat, and thus our standing among the clans has suffered. I have always accepted that my clan is consigned permanently to the sidelines in the workings of the village, but seeing you strive and overcome adversity has motivated me to try and make things better. That is why I have worked this hard to improve myself. Naruto stared at Shino wide-eyed. Though Shino's voice was calm, this was the most emotional speech Naruto was ever witnessed, and the most private to boot. Not to mention that Shino had just told him about a serious weakness his clan has, which spoke clearly at the level of trust the Aburame had in Naruto. Naruto was touched by the gesture. I will show everyone that Aburame aren't to be underestimated, said Shino with conviction. I will revitalize my stagnating clan and stop our self-imposed isolation. We will stand back while others decide our fate no longer. This I believe. And you will become the next Hokage and help me in my task. Do you agree, Uzumaki Naruto? Naruto outstretched his hand, and Shino grasped it. Naruto almost moved to hug him, but he knew that such gesture would be a little too much, even in a moment like this. You better believe I agree, said Naruto with an ear-splitting grin. Believe it. Can I ask you a personal question, then? Asked Shino. Sure. Why did you decide to approach me that day? Naruto stayed silent for a moment, gathering his thoughts. Everyone avoided you as much as possible, said Naruto finally. At first I took it a sign that everyone knows something about you that I don't, so I avoided you too. Looking back, it was very hypocritical of me to complain about being judged prematurely and then acting that way, but at that point in my life I wasn't really thinking too closely about my choices. I just did things on the spur of a moment. So what changed? Asked Shino. I kind of got chewed out by a certain someone about my choices in life. I started thinking about my classmates, and it occurred to me that you were the only one who never really mocked me or acted in a hostile manner. To tell you the truth, I didn't really think it would work. I thought you were just keeping your reservation about me hidden. Go figure. I wish I had approached you sooner. Shino was quiet for full 10 seconds. Naruto knew he wasn't supposed to say anything but instead wait till the other boy responds, but waiting was killing him. I did have reservations about you, said Shino. Your approach was unexpected. Threatening. I suspected you were luring me into one of your pranks. When that proved incorrect, I tried finding an ulterior motive of some sort. Even when I failed in that, I was skeptical about the value of this friendship. Strangely enough, Naruto wasn't hurt by those words. Surviving Sasori, Kabuto, and Anko made a guy pretty jaded when it came to words. If anything, he was glad that Shino was being so honest. He would not have been that blunt if he thought the blonde was too emotionally fragile to take it. Since I have started interacting with you, continued Shino, I have advanced considerably due to your help. You possess a surprising amount of insight into many aspects of ninja existence, Uzumaki Naruto. Stop it, my ego is big enough as it is. You helped me more anyway. We helped each other, corrected Shino. And that is exactly my point. I would not have predicted any benefits from our friendship if I was asked for an assessment. This does not fit in well into my mental framework, Naruto grinned. You're just too cynical. Someone needs to curb your unwarranted optimism, said Shino blankly, though Naruto could detect a faint teasing in his voice. Naruto took the resulting silence as an excuse to pull out a sandwich he prepared for himself, and bit down. If I may ask, said Shino after a while. Why are you so sure I'm the only one receptive to your approach? Naruto swallowed and sighed. I approached everyone. Every single person was aggravated by my presence. I suspect some of them don't really hate me but their friends do, or they think their friends do. Group dynamics can be a pain like that, and they're not going to jeopardize their social standing and connections for a highly speculative benefit from associating with a stigmatized classmate. I like the way your conversational skills have developed, remarked Shino. Naruto looked at him incredulously. Are you making fun of me? Of course not, said Shino. I'm just remarking that your speech is more precise and coherent than it was when we first started socializing with each other. In any case, I'm interested in your opinion about Hyuga Hinata. Naruto raised an eyebrow. What about her? She has no friends either, to my knowledge, and she is not adversarial towards you. Not adversarial? Naruto protested. The girl refuses to even look at me when I speak to her. What do you call that then? Shino quirked an eyebrow. You think she hates you? Naruto shrugged. It sounds plausible to me. It's not like she's the first girl who can't stand being around me. What do you think? She's shy. Naruto remained silent for a while. It made quite a lot of sense, actually. Oh, now that we established that, will you approach her? I don't know, said Naruto. I'm not really a fan of shy people. You weren't very likable when we met either, remarked Shino. Naruto sighed. Fine. I can see it's not really a suggestion. But you could have simply invited her to join us yourself, if you wanted. I certainly wouldn't have objected. She wouldn't have accepted my offer, said Shino flatly. It is imperative that you be the one to approach her, because you're the one she admires. Naruto dropped his sandwich to the ground and fought back the blood that pooled into his face. Me. Admires? Yes, said Shino without a hint of emotion in his voice. But I'm not. There is nothing admirable about me. Apparently she believes otherwise, said Shino. She has expressed an admiration for your persistence in the face of adversity. She hopes to one day possess a strength of character matching yours, so that she may one day persevere in the face of her own obstacles. Naruto clapped a hand over his mouth, trying to restart his brain. This was just too much. She thought so highly of him. What the hell did he do to deserve such admiration? Naruto, I'll see what I can do. He glanced down at the dropped sandwich, but it was already beset by ants. It was just as well. He wasn't hungry anymore. Anko, why are you so brutal in out-training sessions? Panted Naruto. Iruka tells me that's a terrible way of teaching people stuff. It was difficult to fit Anko's lessons into Naruto's routine. Anko's missions took her out of the village often, so their meetings followed a completely erratic schedule, but he managed. The fact that Anko unerringly tracked him down when he failed to show up helped his motivation, and every once in a while Anko would get bored with how he's progressing and then they'd play a game of tag. No, the children's game. In this game Anko threw kunai with explosive tags attached to them at Naruto, and he had to run away and dodge to save his own hide. She claimed she found their meetings therapeutic. Well, this Iruka doesn't know shit, said Anko. Maybe when you're teaching bare basics, but afterwards the kids' gloves come off. If the academy instructors adopted my methods there would be far less dead genin around. Say what? Protested Naruto. Anko, I respect you and all, but just because I can survive your training. Oh, stuff it, brat. Do you really think I didn't tailor my attacks to your level of skill? I'm sure you've noticed that no matter how much you improve you're always pushed to your limits against me. That isn't accidental, Naruto grunted and continued catching his breath. He sat in the lotus position on the grass and started plucking blades of grass from the patch in front of him. Listen, began Anko. I've been in combat conditions, and the biggest reason genin die out there isn't because they lack skills to survive. It's because they freeze up during ambushes or panic once the fighting starts. So many graduates think they're oh so deadly, but their training consisted of chucking kunai at static targets and doing friendly spars, so once they're thrown into an actual combat situation they break down. The ability to pull anything off in a real situation comes from training under real pressure, sparring against people who want to kick your ass and whose abilities you don't know. Naruto looked at Anko, completely stupefied. She had a reason for behaving like she did. He figured she was just being sadistic. That's one reason I agreed to train you, remarked Anko. Remember our initial testing? Naruto shuddered. Well, anyway, continued Anko. You were unlike most other genin. You didn't freeze up when I attacked you, and you remained lucid enough to use the terrain to your advantage. You didn't hold back against me, and it was clear you've practiced your throwing on some sort of moving targets. You had stamina and you fought till your last breath. I was impressed, and by now I can honestly say that I didn't make a mistake. You've been doing good. Frankly, I've been purposely putting pressure on you, to see how long you'll last before you crack, but you just keep coming for more. Naruto grinned widely. I hope I don't have to puncture your ego now, Anko remarked. You know I like puncturing things. Naruto immediately dropped his smile. He did know. Oh, how he knew. Anyway, continued Anko. Today I was thinking I should brat, what the hell are you doing? Naruto didn't bother to look up. He was sitting in a lotus position, palms outstretched in front of him, blades of grass gently circling in a ring above his palms like so many green ribbons. It's a chakra control exercise, answered Naruto. What does it do? Naruto raised his eyebrow, shooting Anko a glance. Do? It improves chakra control. I mean, obviously, it's a chakra control exercise. What else would it do? Anko kicked his palms, scattering the blades of grass in his face and rudely breaking his concentration. Naruto glared at her. What the hell was that for? Come here, brat, I'll teach you a real chakra control exercise. Naruto sighed and rose, dusting himself off. He stalked off after Anko, trying to burn a hole in her back using only his gaze. Really, why does she have to be so aggravating? Okay, brat, said Anko, halting in front of a bunch of trees. You're going to learn how to climb on trees, Anko. Naruto began, rubbing his forehead. I know, but watch. Naruto stared incredulously as Anko stepped on the trunk of the tree and walked up as if gravity ceased to matter to her. Well, damn. This, began Naruto. What kind of technique is that? It's not a technique, said Anko. It's a tree climbing exercise. It practices your chakra control and it's extremely cool to have. Now you can practice something useful instead of that silly crap you were doing. Naruto scowled at her. He needed those exercises. So how the hell do I do that? Asked Naruto crankily. Just channel chakra to the soles of your feet and stick to the bark, said Anko grinning. Naruto eyed her suspiciously. There was something she was not telling him. He was sure of it. He approached the tree and placed his foot on the bark. Channeling chakra to the feet was a bit of a bother, but nothing Naruto wasn't through with already. And using chakra to stick things on you was ninja basics. Hell, the very first exercise every ninja had to learn was to stick a leaf to your forehead. One of his feet still firmly on the ground, he started dragging the other foot over the bark, checking for traction. He scowled in Anko's direction. Had he channeled too much chakra into his foot, the bark would have exploded. Joke's on her, though. He went through enough lessons about chakra from Kabuto and performed enough different chakra control exercises that he could adjust the needed amount perfectly. He made the foot stick to the bark and heaved his other leg on the bark as well, calmly walking up to where Anko was looking at him with disappointment on her face. I'm afraid there will be no explosions today, demon woman, said Naruto. Killjoy, Anko mumbled, before a devilish smirk erupted on her face. So now that I've taught you something cool, you will tell me what's eating you up today? Naruto bit his lip. Should he tell her? Suppose I have someone who admires me. SNRK. Naruto glared at Anko as she tried to stop herself from laughing and failing. It's not funny, he said with annoyance. Right, said Anko, schooling her features. So what does she admires you for? Naruto frowned. He didn't say it was a she. For my perseverance. Oh yeah, I bet you just keep going and going. Anko mumbled. What's that supposed to mean? Naruto snapped, feeling a blush coming up. So when will you make a move on her? Asked Anko with a grin. Never, said Naruto flatly. The girl has serious confidence problems. You'd be amazed what a good fuck can do for a girl's confidence, said Anko, grinning brightly. Naruto resisted the urge to attack her. Anko wasn't intimidated by violence, it would just tell her that this topic is one of his buttons. And boy did she love pressing people's buttons. Kami, you're insufferable, said Naruto. We're both 11, okay? So you're saying you can't get it up yet? Asked Anko innocently. Naruto gritted his teeth and absent-mindedly fingered his kunai. It would just amuse her. It would just. Anko sighed after Naruto refused to attack her after a few seconds. Come on, brat, we're done here for today. I'm in a good mood right now, so I'm buying you lunch. She's buying him lunch? Oh, this is gonna be good. He'll make sure to stuff himself like a pig to get back to her for all the dango expenses she incurs every week, not to mention for making fun of him after he just confided in her. He wasn't going to the Ichirakas this time. He's going somewhere expensive. He hinged into a brown-haired girl and went after her. Anko looked at him curiously. What's that about? If I appear in my real form, store owners tend to sell me the worst merchandise they've got. Like that jumpsuit? Asked Anko. Naruto pouted. Why is everyone so bothered by his jumpsuit? Anko at least shouldn't have the right to complain about anyone's choice of clothing. No, I chose that on my own. I like orange. It attracts attention. Maybe I want people to notice me, Naruto mumbled. Attention whore, huh? She said, smirking, before mumbling something under her breath that Naruto probably wasn't meant to hear. One more thing we have in common, I guess. Still trying? Sasori asked. Naruto exhaled in frustration and continued rummaging through the puppet's insides. His attempt to somehow improve upon Sasori's design was not going anywhere. There was this baffling simplicity and robustness in the puppet before him, and any change he tried to make only made things worse. Even when it seemed he succeeded, it turned out that there was some variable he forgot to take into account. Sasori claimed that each of these standardized puppets was a product of years of testing in real battle conditions, and it certainly showed. For his part, Sasori was more than willing to answer any question Naruto had about any of his puppets. Even though Naruto had been trying to make his own puppet for a while now, all his attempts paled before the creation before him. And the simple fact was that if he couldn't make something better than a standardized puppet, it was better to just use a standardized one than trying to reinvent fire. Not that he was ready to give up yet. He glanced to the shade of the tree where Sasori was working on a new puppet. This puppet was somehow special. Sasori disappeared for 3 days outside Konoha to procure the necessary materials, and then shut himself in for 2 more days, emerging with a disturbingly human-like puppet. The puppet master now spent his time tinkering with it, leaving Naruto mostly to his own devices. Well, that's not totally true. Sasori started teaching Naruto the art of information gathering whenever he found the time. It was both more fun and far more stressful than his other lessons. The basics were talky stuff. Lectures about gathering information in plain sight, drawing conclusions from misinformation, not giving anything important away in conversations, interrogation procedures, common ways that people hide objects, and actually effective methods as a counterexamples, best places to begin searching for someone or something, how to research public records and libraries, things like that. But instead of testing Naruto's retention through verbal questions, Sasori gave him missions to accomplish. Some of them were merely pranks with some concrete goal underneath, but most were pretty bizarre. Go to the library and reconstruct the state of politics in the elemental countries during the Third Ninja War. Find out the names of the Chonins guarding the village gate. List the names and locations of all ninja shops in Konoha. And so on. Some of the missions were silly easy, and some of them were the most nerve-wracking things Naruto ever did in his entire life. Personally, Naruto suspected Sasori gave him those missions just to get rid of him while he tinkers on his beloved puppets. But he did them anyway. Not unexpectedly, these information-gathering efforts did not go completely unnoticed, and earned him a visit to the Hokage's office. Fortunately, Sasori had drilled into Naruto just what to do in a situation like that. Communicate clearly. Provide details liberally, Sasori had said. Remember to deliver your lines with utter conviction and absolutely no hesitation. The lie-detecting abilities of most authority figures are completely mythical, and mostly come down to detecting fear and incoherence of speech as signs of deception. Don't contradict the facts. Speak either in half-truths or non-sequiturs that require your targets to make conclusions themselves. People are always more willing to believe something they think they figured out themselves. In line with that, Naruto was honest with the old man, flat out telling him he was practicing information gathering and describing his accomplishments in great, and mostly unnecessary, detail. He didn't tell the old man where he got the idea for it, but he dropped Shino's name so many times in his conversation that he was sure the old man thought of the Aburame as his teacher. Since Naruto did talk to Shino about his information-gathering efforts, it wasn't exactly a lie. The story seemed plausible to Naruto, and the old man thought so too. Greatly amused, he told Naruto to notify him if he finds out anything. Even gave him some pointers. Naruto sighed. Sasori may be skimping on his duties as his mentor a bit, but at least he doesn't want to look at the seal again. Lying half-naked while an older boy looks meaningfully at your navel and occasionally pokes you in the stomach is an embarrassing way to spend the day. Say, Sasori, began Naruto, why are you always tinkering with those? Don't you have enough puppets already? I counted at least 15, Sasori scoffed. That's nothing. I once had in excess of 200 of them. I'm only now starting to rebuild my collection. Naruto looked at his in confusion. As far as he knew, it wasn't possible to control more than 10 puppets, no matter how good you were. 200 puppets was a definite overkill, but more importantly, how did you lose 200 puppets? Perished in battle, I'm afraid, said Sasori blandly. I nearly went with it, for that matter. You see, I was a member of a rather unpleasant organization whose operatives work in pairs, and my partner decided to leave the organization. I tried to stop him and failed. Naruto could detect a faint but noticeable undercurrent of anger in Sasori's voice. Then again, he knew firsthand how much Sasori cared for his puppets, and just how difficult it was to make even one, let alone 200. Losing 200 puppets was kind of harsh. The sheer amount of wasted effort was bad enough, even if one wasn't as emotionally attached to their creations as Sasori was. So, who is this guy anyway? Sasori sighed. An S-ranked missing nin of the leaf called Orochimaru. Naruto stopped breathing for a moment. Several of Sasori's missions and information gathering concerned finding information about this guy. He was one of the 3 legendary Sannin, a student of the old man, and an all-around unpleasant character. The fact that Sasori was his partner said all sorts of not nice things about his red-headed friend. I am not a particularly nice person, Naruto, said Sasori, somehow aware of his thoughts. I only came to Konoha because it was the best place to lay low and rebuild by strength. Taking a Jinchuriki as a disciple was definitely not what I had planned to do, yet that is how things turned out. You know, Sasori, you never told me that before, said Naruto cautiously. You didn't earn my trust before. There is a lot you don't know about me. Naruto chuckled. He had come to love Sasori's no-nonsense nature, with his forthright answers and lack of sugarcoating. He filed Orochimaru under one of Sasori's buttons that he can push to make him more talkative, the other 2 being art and puppeteering respectively. Can you just tell me something? Asked Naruto. Ask and I shall consider it, Sasori said. How come I've never been this good at learning stuff before you came along? I don't mean to belittle you or anything, but you haven't done that much. And yet when I look at myself, how I was before and how I am now, I'm a completely different person. How did you do that? All I did was give you a chance to be judged, Sasori said. Naruto blinked. People always try to coast through life with the least amount of effort necessary, began Sasori. Left unchecked, they rationalize away the reasons they should do their best, or even do at all. What keeps people in check is judgment of people they care about. They want their parents to be proud of them, their love interests to notice them, the people they admire to befriend them, so they try. These connections to other people are strings that constantly tug at you, pulling you in this or that direction. Without these strings to tug at them, people, like puppets, are inclined to do nothing at all. Started Naruto. I don't think you can really compare people to puppets, Sasori. Perhaps. But assuming I'm correct for a moment, what happens when someone becomes disconnected from the strings? When everyone a person cares about dies or leaves, or when they never had anyone to begin with. They are left adrift in an empty world, without ties to other people, and thus very little purpose in their lives. Naruto inhaled deeply. He wasn't sure he liked where this was going. You were born an orphan, continued Sasori. Your only link were the Hokage and the owners of Ichiraku, but they were weak links, and their judgment was feeble. What reason did you have to try hard at being a good ninja? Who is that would have judged you, truly judged you, for not trying hard enough? It was up to you, and you alone to determine when to stop trying, to convince yourself that there really is a solution to your problems, and that all you need to do is find the path towards it. Few people can do that. Naruto was silent, listening to Sasori's words with a deepening frown. The thing that makes you different from your younger self is that you've eliminated the doubt and fear that you might be wasting your time, continued Sasori. You have a mentor that told you there is a solution, and that it is within your ability to achieve. Not only does this boost your confidence by making you feel entitled to success, it makes you afraid of disappointing me and thus less likely you'll just give up because you found a plausible-sounding reason why you shouldn't bother. Tried Naruto. Old man also encouraged me to. Exactly, said Sasori. Encouraged. He offered you his compassion, not his unbiased opinion. You desire my encouragement because you know it's not guaranteed. It is in the nature of judgment that it can damn as well as bless, else it has no power. But I've had plenty of people, damn me, said Naruto. And who were they to you? Random strangers dismissing you without a moment's thought? There was no more judgment in that than in Hokage's encouraging words. A string always has 2 ends. Before my opinion could carry weight with you, you have judged me yourself and found me to be worthy of respect, someone whose opinion could go either way. Naruto exhaled heavily. Man, I guess it makes kind of sense, but you're saying the only reason I'm good is that I've got people constantly watching over my shoulder? Not just you. Everyone, humph. I don't think I like your view of people, Sasori. So how do you explain me getting more accepted by people around me? Somehow, my recent attempts at talking to people go a lot better than they did in the past. Sasori got a faraway look for a moment. First of all, when I met you, you were clingy. You were talking my ear off with all sorts of random things, and you were following me like a lost puppy after I showed you a minor gesture of goodwill. There was an air of desperation about you, and desperation only attracts vultures. Naruto inhaled heavily and resisted the urge to protest. Ouch. Hearing that really fucking hurt. He was accustomed to Sasori's deadpan explanations by now, but couldn't he have been just a little gentler? Secondly, you're actually useful to people now. You weren't before. What do you mean I wasn't before? Exploded Naruto. There was plenty I could do. And you're really full of shit, Sasori. People don't think like that. Nobody goes around trying to find the most useful person around. Of course not, agreed Sasori. They think about choices. What you have to understand is that most people are either orphans nor social pariahs, and have considerable obligations to their family and existing friends. You must have noticed that now that you've made some friends and started taking your training seriously, your free time has reduced drastically, forcing you to prioritize things. People have a routine that takes up most of their time and some buffer for unexpected circumstances, and you have to make it worth their while if you want them to rearrange their life to accommodate you in it. Otherwise, it makes more sense for them to consolidate their existing relationship rather than forge one with you. Naruto fell silent, unwilling to continue the discussion any longer. He reached into his backpack and made a small fire to boil a pot of water. 4 cups of instant ramen patiently waited till he's finished. Even after all this time, Naruto still found Sasori's opinions deeply unsettling. Yet he kept asking for them. Maybe it really was truth that he desired his judgment, his opinion, that double-edged sword that can both kill and heal. Or maybe he's just a masochist. After all, he once had an unhealthy obsession with Sasuke and Sakura. He had accepted Anko as a teacher, and regularly tempted irate villagers with his pranks. Really, Sasori was just completing the pattern. The only people in his social circle that weren't either brutally blunt or a danger to the unwary were Old Man and the Ichirakas, and they didn't really hang out around him all that much. Maybe that's why he didn't like Hinata all that much, not aggressive enough. He tried imagining Hinata yelling at him and bopping him in the head, and was disturbed to find he actually found this fictional aggressive Hinata rather cute. He slammed his head into the tree behind him. Bad thoughts, bad thoughts, bad thoughts. The last thing he needs is another Sakura. He decided he wasn't going to distract himself with romance for the foreseeable future, and that decision stays. Besides, Hinata was not confident and aggressive. She was deferential, indecisive, and prone to fainting and panic attacks in stressful situations. She was. Desperation only attracts vultures. Desperate. Hinata was desperate, so desperate that she latched on to him, of all people, as her idol. Her insecurities were a big juicy target for anyone unscrupulous enough to target her. That's when he decided that he would help Hinata overcome her despair, just like Sasori helped him. He didn't know if he was up to the task, but he figured he would just repeat what Sasori did with him. He would give her a chance to be judged. Hey Sasori, want some ramen? He called out to Sasori. I already ate, Sasori answered. You always say that. I'm beginning to think you don't like ramen. You're not that sort of freak, are you? Of course not. Good, because ramen is the food of the gods. It's so good that, Naruto, if you don't shut up about ramen, I'll sew your mouth shut. Naruto clacked his tongue. Possibly the creepiest thing about Sasori's threats was that he deployed them so calmly, and without changing the inflection of his voice too much. He would say horrible things with the same voice he always used, like he was talking about the weather instead of threatening to gut you like a sardine. He really should leave the puppet master when he's tinkering with his puppets. He really should. What do you think about my eating habits? Asked Naruto suddenly. Sasori looked at him in obvious surprise. Naruto grinned, pleased that he managed to throw the older boy out of tact. What? Everyone is always nagging me about how much ramen I'm eating. Do you think they're right? One of the major downsides of having high chakra reserves is an increased need for calories. And when it comes to calories, few foods can match raw carbohydrates. Like, say, noodles. Unfortunately, noodles are rather bland by themselves, so most people add some sort of flavor to them. Like putting them in a soup or broth. Naruto stared at Sasori in surprise. So no, I don't think they're right, concluded Sasori. You're not getting fat, so it's obvious your body needs all that food. If anything, you should eat more of that stuff. Naruto's eyes started tearing up, confusing Sasori. Naruto wa, you're my best friend ever. Naruto shouted, lunging at Sasori. No hugging. Hissed Sasori. Stay right where you are, quickly. What do you think about my outfit? Said Naruto. You could wear a clown's suit for all I care, said Sasori crankily. What did I tell you about physical contact? Sorry, said Naruto, rubbing the back of his head. I forgot you don't like touching. If you forget again, I'm going to sick my puppets at you, Sasori warned. The poison-using ones. Okay, I get it, said Naruto. I get it. Naruto watched in concentration, and coins on the tips of his fingers continued to spin. Balancing a spinning coin on the tip of your finger was no mean feat, but that wasn't the end stage of this chakra exercise. With great concentration, he made one of the coins instantly grind to a stop, one of its sides pointing towards Naruto. After a moment of admiration for his achievement, he set the coins spinning in the opposite direction. After a few such feats, he started stopping and restarting the coins in quick succession in a rather mesmerizing display. Truthfully, he had mastered this particular exercise months ago, but it still wasn't as easy for him to perform as he'd like, and Hinata wanted a demonstration. He glanced at the Hyuga girl sitting beside him as she stared at Naruto's little show with wide eyes. Really, it wasn't that impressive. It was actually rather depressing how quickly she mastered the first 3 exercises, compared to him. He spent 4 weeks getting those right, and she did them effortlessly on her first try. Approaching Hinata was really a chore. The first time he walked up to her and tried to strike up a conversation, she froze up and refused to speak at all. If it weren't for all those information-gathering missions Sasori made him do, he probably wouldn't have enough experience in approaching people and would have screwed up badly. As it was, he thrashed the idea of making casual conversation and asked her for help with the material they were learning. She loosened up a bit after that, but she was still weird, periodically giving him strange looks and apologizing way too much for every silly little thing, and sometimes for things that seemed to exist only in her head. It took 2 months till he got her to speak about anything other than class material. Seriously, even Anko was easier to crack. But once Naruto got in his mind that he should help her, he wasn't going to quit easily. His attempts to have her practice with him were more thorny still. When he tried to talk her into sparring with him, she shot him a look of pure terror and started hyperventilating like he just threatened to cut her up. He shelved that idea for the foreseeable future. She was, however, very interested in the chakra control exercises he was doing. He wasn't sure why, since she had absolutely no trouble with Academy Jutsu, but he gave her a copy of the scrolls he got from Kabuto and gave her some direction, after which she took it up with startling ease. Well, startling to Naruto. Feeling somewhat self-conscious, he pushed a bit of chakra into 2 of the coins, causing them to launch into the air. Deftly maneuvering his fingers, he managed to catch them both, only now their places were reversed. This wasn't a step outlined on the scroll, and required more than just chakra control. It required the sort of manual dexterity that few people possessed. Unless you were undergoing puppeteer training, that is. Originally Naruto designed this step so he can kill 2 birds with 1 stone and all that, but currently he was just plain showing off. He started juggling the coins around, showing Hinata that yes, she's way better than him in this chakra control business, but she has a long way to go to match his pure awesome. Why yes, he was being awfully petty. Why do you ask? He yelped in surprise and dropped all his coins when something slammed on the bench beside him. He looked wild-eyed at the source of the sound, only to find a strange-looking box beside him and an annoyed-looking Shikamaru. You. Me. Shogi. Now, intoned Shikamaru. Naruto sat there, stupefied. This was just so surreal. Ha! Shikamaru sighed. I didn't say anything when you got better at accuracy. I bore it when you got better at taijutsu. But now you're going to work on your written scores too? Have you no mercy? I thought you hated history and crap like that. Naruto frowned. He had noticed that Shikamaru's scores rose in step with his own, but he never cared much about it. After all, did it ever occur to you that you don't really have to match my scores, Shikamaru? Your scores is well above average by now, so your mother has no reason for concern anymore. Learning and training is troublesome, said Shikamaru with a sigh, but I wouldn't be able to look at myself in the mirror every morning if I scored lower than a dope like you. Naruto's face split open in a toothy grin. You do realize I'll work that much harder, now that I know I'll be dragging a lazy ass like you with me, right? That is why I'm here, said Shikamaru, straightening himself up. I am issuing you a challenge. A challenge? Naruto liked challenges. A shogi match. Shogi? Asked Naruto, as if Shikamaru suggested they play with a diseased carcass. Shogi, repeated Shikamaru. If I win, you have to keep your scores right where they are. Naruto glanced over Shikamaru's shoulder, seeing Chuji hanging back, giving him an apologetic look. Naruto was torn. On one hand, it was a challenge, and he didn't like backing down from challenges. On the other hand, it was shogi. Naruto wasn't very good at that game, and everyone knew Shikamaru practically breathed it. If Shino was here, he would undoubtedly short-circuit this in short order. Come to think of it, this was probably why Shikamaru chose to do this now. Shino was absent because of clan business, so this was one of the few opportunities where Shikamaru could catch Naruto without his sensible friend. He glanced at Hinata, but she seemed to be trying to retract her limbs and head into her jacket, like a turtle. He would be getting no help from her. And if you lose? Asked Naruto. Name something, said Shikamaru lazily. You'll have to spar with me once a week, said Naruto. Shikamaru seemed to mull over it in his head. All right. Let's do this. Wait, said Naruto. I didn't say I accept. We were just discussing the terms. If I am to accept this, I have one additional rule. Shikamaru frowned. You can't just add rules to shogi. It's just a simple time limit, said Naruto cheerfully. Every move has to be made within a 3 seconds time frame. Chuji will time it. It's just so the game is done before the lunch break ends, you know? Shikamaru's frown deepened, and Naruto could tell he was thinking furiously. Naruto didn't really blame him. He was trying to lure Shikamaru into a trap. Naruto had, in fact, played shogi before. A while back, Old Man tried to get him to play, but Naruto found it too frustrating. It's not that the rules were complicated. He got the rules easily. It's just that he found it impossible to keep the mind on the game for half an hour or more it took to finish a round. That wasn't fun, and games were supposed to be fun. He knew there was no way he could beat Shikamaru in a classical game of shogi, but he had a sneaking suspicion that the lazy boy doesn't work well under pressure. Naruto didn't mind the 3-second limit. He would have made a move within that time frame anyway, but Shikamaru liked to mull his options for a few minutes and look the situation from all angles. It was a gamble, but he thought he had a chance in this kind of setup. Shikamaru moved to unpack the board, but Naruto beat him to it. If Shikamaru was in charge of setup, he would have taken his time, and Naruto didn't want him to gather his bearings. He set the board up as quickly as he could, motioning Chuji to come. He handed a wristwatch to Chuji and told him to shout if one of them goes over the time limit. From the corner of his eye, Naruto could see Hinata emerge from her jacket and edge closer so she could see the game. All right, said Naruto cheerfully. Standard rules, but failure to move a piece within 3 seconds is equivalent to a forfeit. As the one being challenged, I move first. Start. Shikamaru scrambled into his seat, caught off guard by the speed with which things were developing. He was doing great at first, probably because he memorized every possible opening and response to it. But as the game progressed, Shikamaru started showing signs of stress. His every move was straining the time limit, and he was getting sloppy. Naruto ignored the first few openings so as to not put Shikamaru on guard, and then, when he felt the boy's latest lapse was too good to ignore, launched his offensive. I win, said Naruto, trying and failing to hide the glee in his voice. Shikamaru said nothing. He stared at the board in shock, silent and unmoving. Naruto was almost sorry for him. Almost. This isn't shogi. Shikamaru mumbled under his breath, staring at the board. Shogi is thinking game. You think carefully and you make your move. There wasn't enough time. There just wasn't enough time, Naruto sighed. Now he was starting to become depressed. Once a week Naruto would meet up with Shikamaru on the training ground designated to academy students and spar with him. Oh, the lazy ass tried to sabotage the spars with passive resistance, but Naruto stopped that pretty quickly. His viciousness was negatively correlated with the amount of effort Shikamaru displayed on his part. In one instance he even resorted to using Shikamaru as target practice. He had to at least admit that Shikamaru was true to his word and didn't just go back on their deal, despite constant mumblings of troublesome and demands for a rematch. Where Shikamaru went, Chuji followed, and Naruto found Akamichi nice to talk to every once in a while. He did manage to rope Chuji into sparring with him a few times, but the Akamichi clearly wasn't ready to make an effort, and Naruto didn't have a contractual excuse to go vicious on him as motivation, so he stopped asking. After a warm-up with Shikamaru, Naruto would get his ass handed to him by Shino, who took these meetings as an opportunity to synchronize schedules for common benefit. His best friend continued to getting better just as rapidly as Naruto did, despite Naruto's efforts. Probably the most infuriating thing about fighting both with Shikamaru and Shino was their relative immunity to attrition fighting that was Naruto's greatest strength. Now that he rounded up his taijutsu basics, he often won academy spars against other people simply by outlasting his opponents, pressing for attack once they're too winded to defend effectively. But these two had a certain economy of movement that allowed them to last just as long as Naruto did. Shikamaru's lazy-looking stumbling had a certain flowing quality, using just enough energy to move out of the way and no more. His style of fighting empathized dodging and using the opponent's momentum against him. But the most insidious thing was that, at the first glance, it looked like a bastardized version of Academy Standard rather than a highly effective style that it actually was. It made people underestimate Shikamaru and overextend themselves, trying to capitalize on non-existent weaknesses and leaving themselves vulnerable as a consequence. Shino, on the other hand, executed his movements with mechanical precision and regularity. He utilized blocking and solid footing to destabilize his opponents, and never made any obvious errors or openings one could use. There was no feints or tricks in his attacks and defenses, just pure, unyielding skill that was actually quite intimidating when you had to face it. Again, the style looked superficially like Academy Standard, but Shino was using it completely unlike what they were taught in the Academy. He doubted many people could notice this, but after all that time of having basic stances and principles drilled into his head by Irika, he was pretty sure he could detect differences in the flow of movements from one person to another. Shino and Shikamaru used Academy Standard, but it was a version of it unique to them or, more likely, unique to their clans. After a few weeks another person joined their little sparring club, although Naruto had to admit he was less than pleased when Kiba showed up one day, saying he heard there was some sort of competition going on. Much like he mistook Hinata's shyness for dislike, Naruto had mistook Kiba's boisterous attitude and vicious insults for rabid hostility. In truth, the Inuzuka just had an intense personality, and tended to fling insults at the drop of a hat. It wasn't that he hated Naruto specifically, he just didn't mince words around him and spoke aloud what his classmates whispered about him behind his back. Kiba was, Naruto understood now, looking for a challenge. His idea of a friendly interaction was a light brawl and a round of exchanging boasts and colorful epithets for a few minutes. Once Naruto figured that out, he was all too glad to play along, to Shino's embarrassment. Kiba wasn't bad at fighting, but he heavily relied on his dog to distract opponents, a tactic that was very effective against other academy students that never faced more than a single opponent. Naruto, having experience against Sasori's puppets and Anko's snakes, couldn't be had that easily. He still got beaten into the ground by Kiba, but the fight left the dog boy winded and appreciative of a tough opponent like Naruto. Kiba's movements were sloppy and wasteful. He relied on brute strength and berserker rushes to end the fight quickly. Protracted fights seemed to be his bane, and Naruto was certain that in a month or two he could read his style well enough to withstand the initial rush and then show him what he thinks about his alleged unbeatability. Thus begun their rivalry/friendship. To everyone else it must have seemed like they were worst enemies, constantly yelling insults at each other and fighting, but Naruto relished the company of someone who was as uninhibited and energetic as he was. Kiba was never a close friend like Shino, or even Hinata. The boy had an ego bigger than that of Sasuke and Naruto's pre-Sasori self combined, so Naruto could only take Kiba's company in small doses. But Naruto found him to be an all-around okay character. And of course Hinata was there, though she didn't want to spar and Naruto didn't want to bother her about it. Instead she worked on chakra control exercises under Naruto's guidance. He actually managed to weasel out the reason she was so instant on learning them. Hinata wanted to be a medic nin. That is, she kinda, sort of, maybe wanted to learn how to heal people if it weren't totally unbefitting of a Hyuga heiress to choose a support role rather than taking the lead. And oh god, please don't tell anyone. He started teaching her anatomy, giving her a copy of his annotated notes, so she could study them at home. She would never really match his skill without practicing on cadavers like he did, but he doubted Hinata could stomach something like that at this point. Baby steps, baby steps. He would accomplish his goals slowly and meticulously, one step at a time. Chapter 5, Forbid Ants. With an animalistic snarl, Kiba rushed again at Naruto, who simply sidestepped the charge and delivered a vicious kick to Kiba's side. Once again Kiba dropped to the floor, but this time he didn't scramble up to continue fighting. Naruto wins, Irika said. Kiba shot Naruto a glare as he finally managed to get up, stomping away without a word. Naruto sighed in frustration. He didn't understand what the Inuzuka was so upset about. It was an official academy spar. They were supposed to fight at their best. It wasn't Naruto's fault that he couldn't use Akamaru in this fight. It wasn't him making the rules. It was kind of sad though. Without Akamaru to distract the opponent, Kiba's fighting style was extremely ineffective. Too straightforward. All that power behind Kiba's strikes was wasted unless he had someone to limit his opponent's movement and herd them into the right spot. Naruto would have given Kiba some pointers on how to be more effective when fighting solo, except that he knew Kiba wouldn't appreciate any advice from Naruto. And that concludes this month's Academy Spars, said Irika. You all did fine, but the final exams are approaching, so don't forget to practice. I'll see you all tomorrow. Naruto, could you stay behind for a bit? Naruto frowned. It's been a while since he was last asked to stay behind after the class. He couldn't remember doing anything that would warrant it. Maybe he really was a bit too harsh on Kiba. He supposed being taught by the likes of Sasori and Anko made him a bit more vicious than what the typical academy student was accustomed to. Is there something wrong? Asked Naruto. Oh no, nothing like that, said Irika cheerfully. No, I want to talk to you about something else. It's about your remedial classes. What about them? Asked Naruto suspiciously. Well, began Irika. Thing is, you're no longer a problem student, Naruto. With the graduation approaching, I think it would be best if I focus on people who actually need additional assistance. Naruto stared at Irika for a few seconds, mulling things inside his head. He didn't need to have things spelled out for him to understand what Irika was saying. He was canceling Naruto's remedial classes, pure and simple. Now, this in itself wasn't so much of a problem. After all, Naruto had already received most of the benefits of those classes by now. But it was very unlike Irika. Just a week ago, Irika was trying to expand the remedial lessons to cover history of Konoha. So where did this come from? I suppose that's sensible, said Naruto cautiously. I did patch up my taijutsu already. Exactly, agreed Irika. In fact, the only students better than you in taijutsu are Sasuke and Shino. You're quite acceptable for a rookie genin when it comes to taijutsu. Right, said Naruto. It's just a bit unexpected, that's all. Ah, yes, that it is, said Irika happily. Hokage-sama was so pleased with the results of your remedial classes he gave me permission to organize them on a permanent basis for students identified as struggling with the academy material. Really? Asked Naruto curiously. Yes. I had been asking for it for quite some time, actually, but I never really thought it would be granted. Disputes about what policies the academy should take on any particular issue usually get quite heated, and I'm not exactly a high-ranking ninja. Naruto honestly doubted Irika would see a repeat of his success with other students, seeing how there was a number of factors in Naruto's success that Irika knew nothing about, but he wished the man all luck in his endeavor and left. Something didn't sound right in all this, though Naruto couldn't tell what. That got him concerned. When he went to find Kabuto and instead received a coded signal from the creepy medic Nin, telling Naruto to stay away from him for a while, he knew that something was really rotten. That got him frightened. When he got home and found Anko knocking at his door, he knew things had gone completely to hell, and was having a hard time not panicking. Hey Naruto, where do you keep sake? Naruto grumpily looked at Anko as she went through his drawers without any regard for privacy. When he told her to make herself at home, he didn't think she'd take it so literally. I'm 12, Anko said Naruto. I don't have any sake in my apartment, Anko sniffled disapprovingly. Lame. Naruto went to the fridge to retrieve a bottle of orange juice and poured both of them a glass. Anko looked at her glass reprehensively but then shrugged and downed it all in one go. Naruto, I can't teach you anymore, Anko said casually. What? Out training lessons. I can't help you there anymore. Yes you can. You haven't taught me a fraction. Naruto, she said forcefully, her face more serious than he ever saw her before. I can't teach you anymore. Get it? Things clicked inside his head. It was that kind of can't. She's been ordered not to. Is it because you're teaching me, or because you're teaching me? This is a really good orange juice, Naruto-kun, answered Anko cheerfully. Naruto nodded to himself. So they're being eavesdropped too? Yes it is. So is this it? Our last meeting, never to meet again? Hell no, answered Anko. I'm like a bad rash, you can't get rid of me that easily. I can't teach you anymore, but no one said we can't hang out like buddies. Unless you were just using me and now I'm no use to you. She tried giving him puppy eyes but it just freaked him out. Puppy eyes do not belong on someone like Anko. Oh be quiet, you know you'll always be my crazy lady, said Naruto. If anything I'll be glad you're not trying to kill me every 5 minutes. Technically, there is no prohibition on that either, said Anko thoughtfully. Anko, anyway let's talk. About what? Asked Naruto suspiciously. Anko's stories were inevitably embarrassing to listen to. He still remembered her advice as to what to do with Hinata. Buddy stuff, Anko said with a vicious grin, and Naruto knew his suspicions were correct. He knew this was Anko's way of breaking the tension and calming them both. But that doesn't mean that Okami. That's disgusting, Anko, really disgusting. And yet, despite Anko's valiant, if dubious effort in getting his mind off the fact that he was just deprived of one of his more effective teachers. The whole things was very much on his mind. And Irika too, even if wasn't losing all that much from the termination of the remedial classes. It was the principle of the thing, and of course, he'll have to avoid Kabuto and Sasori for a while, whole weeks probably, and that's going to set back his training in all sorts of ways. He was going to get back at old man for doing this to him. What he did was sabotage, total sabotage. A retaliation was in order. Something big, but harmless. Something that sends a message. In fact, listening to Anko, he just had a perfect idea. In retrospect, enacting plans made under the influence of Anko was probably a mistake. I can't express how disappointed I am in you, Naruto, scolded Irika, positively trembling with frustration and anger. I can't believe you, what possessed you to do something so crass and tasteless? Naruto ignored him, looking accusingly at the Sarutobi in front of him. For his part, Sarutobi didn't say a thing, returning Naruto's gaze with a blank look, studying him. He puffed his pipe a few times before turning to Irika. Thank you for bringing him here, Irika, old man said evenly. Could you leave us alone now? Yes, Hokage-sama. Irika gave one last scathing look at Naruto, and then vacated the room. Naruto and Sarutobi remained in silence for full 30 seconds. Finally, Sarutobi removed the pipe from his mouth and sighed. I must say I'm impressed you managed to repaint the Hokage Tower into lurid pink penis in a single night. If anyone asked me if it could be done, I'd have laughed in their face. It's not your style, though. It's almost like you were trying to tell me something. You're a giant dick. Sarutobi resisted the urge to sigh. This is about Anko, isn't it? Of course it's about Anko. Should have known he wouldn't be fooled, Sarutobi mumbled under his breath, rubbing the base of his nose in a vain attempt to banish the coming headache. Finally, he leveled a steady gaze towards the blonde kid in front of him. It was out of my hands, Naruto. Right. And I suppose if I asked you why she's not allowed to teach me anymore? Sarutobi shook his head in negative. Thought so, said Naruto gloomily. So other people can have a bunch of paid instructors and relatives teaching them. But I can't meet Anko once a week to learn how to hold a kunai properly. Because that's two monsters conspiring against Konoha, right? Sarutobi flinched. Despite Naruto's overdramatic choice of wording, not everyone had trainers outside the academy, and Anko's lessons most certainly didn't stop at kunai handling. The boy was essentially correct. Quite frankly, he didn't think Anko was a good influence on Naruto, and it could start all sorts of nasty rumors if it became widely known. He couldn't really tell that to Naruto though, so he decided to play on the boy's pity a bit. Naruto isn't the only one who knows how to be overdramatic. What do you want me to do, Naruto? Sarutobi said pleadingly. Do you realize how shaky my position already is? Everyone knows I'm just a replacement until a suitable successor is found, and Konoha went through so much in the past 12 years. Old man, said Naruto quietly. Do you remember my 10th birthday? What about it? You took me out to Ichiraku's. You told me how disappointed you are at my poor performance, and how I'm not taking my education seriously. Naruto, I felt like shit, hissed Naruto. The Hokage, the only person who cared about me, my idol, thought I was a failure. So from that point on I worked every freaking day to get better so you wouldn't feel ashamed of me anymore. And now you tell me that it was all just a bunch of lies and that you'd prefer if I stayed a complete dunce. No! Shouted Sarutobi, his aging hand smashing against the table to hard the whole room echoed with the sound. Naruto jerked in shock and Sarutobi immediately schooled his reactions. At least he now knows what caused the change in Naruto's attitude. He does remember Naruto's reaction to criticism being stronger that day, but well, he had his hands full that month and it just sort of slipped out of his mind. The funny thing is that he doesn't remember saying anything to Naruto that day that he didn't tell the boy dozens of times before that. Strange. It wasn't a bunch of lies and I wouldn't have preferred if you had stayed a dunce, as you say, Sarutobi said more softly. But there are people who would. People I can't afford to alienate right now. It wasn't a total lie. A lot of people were scrutinizing the blonde for any sign of demonic influence, especially since his recent explosive growth and capabilities. As unfair as it may sound, him being too capable was something Sarutobi wanted to avoid at this time. It would put him in an awkward position where, to allay the fears of possession, he would have to subject Naruto to intensive interrogation and examination. There was no way Naruto's attitude towards the village would remain unscathed after something like that. Fortunately, all inquiries into Naruto's growth produced nothing particularly suspicious. Though sometimes Sarutobi wondered whether that was because there was truly nothing suspicious about it, or because the blonde was somehow able to detect when he was being observed. The reports were a little too neat, and as Sarutobi distinctly remembered, as a little child, Naruto had a remarkable ability to detect even highly experienced ANBU, before he mysteriously lost it as he aged. But did he really lose it, or simply learn to pretend he doesn't have it? Sarutobi wasn't particularly keen on digging deeper. He had a feeling it would only end in tears for everyone. Besides, he continued, Anko was a curious choice of a teacher. Who else but another outcast would be willing to associate with me? Grumbled Naruto. The Hokage for a start, said Sarutobi with a wry smile. Yeah, I didn't mean it like that. Sarutobi waved his hand dismissively. Let's talk about your punishment instead. Naruto swallowed heavily and straightened himself up, trying to present a brave exterior. Sarutobi remained silent for a while, letting Naruto squirm in his chair. His imagination was clearly working furiously to think up all sorts of likely punishments. First of all, said Sarutobi finally, since you like painting things so much, you're going to spend this week repainting the entire Sarutobi estate. In original colors. After you scrubbed the Hokage's tower clean, Naruto groaned, but Sarutobi felt no pity. What Naruto did was a little too much. And yet, he kind of missed these pranks of his. It's been a while since he did something this audacious. It would be a lot funnier if he wasn't the target. Secondly, for the rest of this month you will report to the Hokage's archive in this tower every day after class. You'll be helping the nice people there sort all the paperwork that passes through daily. Since I am a generous man, you will be permitted to leave 1 hour earlier than other employees. Naruto paled, his mouth stuck agape, trying to form some sort of response. Sarutobi almost stopped here, but he felt he needed to show Naruto that messing with the Hokage is a very bad idea. Time for an encore. Finally, since you love training so much, I have arranged for a 1-week training session with one of Konoha's elite Jonin. He is a demanding teacher, but I'm sure you won't disappoint him. Really? Said Naruto cautiously. That doesn't sound so bad. What's the name of this elite Jonin? Sarutobi smiled sweetly. His name is Metogai. Whatever grievances you had with him, that was highly immature, said Shino. Whatever. You could have painted it with flowers, said Hinata quietly. Naruto looked at her incredulously. I was trying to send him a message. What would have painting the tower in flowers communicate? I doubt the Hokage would be pleased if you painted the tower in any motif, said Shino. The message would be sent, you'd get your meeting with the Hokage, and we wouldn't have to be embarrassed to be seen with you. Anko and Kiba thought it was a good idea, protested Naruto. Shino and Hinata didn't seem interested in responding. What did he say? Asked Shino finally. Nothing I didn't expect, said Naruto. People in high places don't like the fact that I'm getting so much better so fast. I really don't understand. I thought academy students were supposed to prepare themselves as best as they could. Besides, maybe if the academy did their job I wouldn't need to seek outside help in the first place. Shino adjusted his glasses, signaling that he is about to deliver a lecture. Contrary from what the instructors claim, it is not the academy's job to train the students in ninja skills to the best of their ability, said Shino. Naruto looked at him strangely. It isn't? No. Being a ninja is a prestigious occupation with no shortage of candidates. Ninja villages enroll a lot of children in their training programs because they like to have a large selection to choose from, not because they actually hope for all of them to graduate. Most of the students won't become genin, simply because there isn't enough missions for so many new recruits. What do you think would happen if the academy taught every student advanced chakra control, built up their chakra reserves, and gave them powerful techniques they can use effectively, and then threw most of them back on the streets? Those people wouldn't settle for civilian jobs after acquiring such skills, concluded Shino. They would emigrate to other villages or simply work freelance, taking with them the techniques and expertise that Konoha provided and serving as competition afterwards. Naruto frowned. So what is the academy supposed to be doing? The academy is supposed to bring students to a level of skill that serves as a solid base for further instructions by their eventual Jonin sensei, but is deemed relatively non-threatening. Theoretically, the multi-year education should also allow the instructors to evaluate everyone's talent and loyalty. Theoretically? Asked Naruto. Clan-born students are inherently at advantage, said Shino. Because their families and fellow clan members will almost certainly provide them with private tutoring, they tend to be more skilled than students from civilian families, which is then taken as a sign of great talent. And since questioning the loyalty of a clan-born students is commonly understood as a political attack, the default assumption of academy instructors is that the loyalty of anyone belonging to an established clan is ironclad. But, protested Naruto, what about all those paid instructors I keep hearing about? Barring special permission from the Hokage, they are barred from teaching anyone below Chunin rank. That's not right, said Naruto angrily. Sasuke has a ton of paid instructors. They're breaking the rules, said Shino blankly. As your own experience with Anko demonstrates, that particular rule is often broken. Unless someone goes to the trouble of raising the issue with the Hokage, there are no problems. But Shino, said Hinata. You keep talking like academy instructors pick which students pass and which not. It's not like that at all. I heard there's a test to see who passes, like performing a technique correctly or hitting enough targets. That's true, agreed Shino. However, I conducted a private research of older generations to glean some insight into the graduation mechanic. It appears there is another test beyond the academy one, administered by the Jonin sensei assigned to one's team. Curiously enough, clan members tend to be placed with one another on the same team, through a completely impartial and objective process, of course, and these teams always pass. After carefully deliberation, I have come to the conclusion that the first test is merely an elimination round, and the real selection is more politically charged. But that's not fair, protested Naruto. It's a conclusion I came to after extensive observation, answered Shino. Naruto snorted, looking away. So they decided I'm too much of a security threat to have Anko teaching me. Is that what you're saying? But why? Asked Hinata timidly. Why would you be a security threat? Naruto exchanged a glance with Shino, biting his lip. It was nice that Hinata was beginning to speak more freely, but it brought all sorts of uncomfortable questions. He tended to forget that Hinata isn't in on all their secrets. ISC, Hinata mumbled, lowering her head. Hinata. Naruto began. It's okay, she said, pressing her fingers together and refusing to look at him. Why you don't have to tell me? I'm used to it. Naruto shut his eyes in frustration. She certainly got the hang out of guilt-tripping people. After a second of thought, he reached a decision. Hinata, what do you know about Kyubi no Kitsune? Hinata took the information surprisingly well. It was the first time Naruto had seen the shy girl so verbose. Naruto hugged her as a thank you for her supportive words, but that just made her faint. She really should stop doing that. The paperwork in the tower was a chore, but Naruto didn't complain. In fact, he put in his maximum effort out of spite, to show old man that his fearsome punishment was nothing. Unfortunately, the other people in the archive were surprised only momentarily, and quickly went along with it, and started finding all sorts of jobs for him. Like one of the people there told him, it would be a shame not to take advantage of this new enthusiastic worker. A life lesson, Naruto supposed. As for repainting the Sarutobi estate, the task would have been trivial if it weren't for the old man's grandson, an annoying brat called Konohamaru. The kid approached him while he was painting and was so insufferable in his gloating that Naruto accidentally dumped a can of paint on him, and then helpfully scrubbed him clean in the roughest manner possible that wouldn't rub the skin right off of him. As a response, the little brat actually tried to prank him, Naruto, the king of pranks. Which, of course, backfired on the brat. Ever since the damn brat refused to leave Naruto alone, futilely trying to catch the blonde in one of his amateurish traps. Surely he'll get bored of it in a few days. Right, but that was neither here nor there. Right now he was waiting just outside the gates of Konoha for the third part of his punishment. The man named Mato guy who will be his trainer for the next week. Naruto didn't understand why this was supposed to be so scary. He survived Anko's training, didn't he? He seriously doubted the guy could be worse than Anko in his training methods. He nearly jumped out of his skin when someone beside him started shouting, "It is fortunate you could make it. It is truly heartening to see a young man whose fires of youth burn brightly enough to join me and Lee in our evening training session." Naruto stared mesmerized at the large green man and his slightly shorter clone. He didn't have much right criticizing anyone for their choice of clothes, seeing he was wearing neon orange jumpsuit, but the sheer loudness and wild gesturing on the man was extremely off-putting. Was this how he appeared to people before Sasori found him? "Guy-sensei," piped in the clone beside the man, Lee presumably. "Let us show this young man just how brightly our fires burn." "Excellent," Guy agreed. "Today we will run extra 20 laps around Konoha." Naruto's eyes widened. "How many? And what the hell does he mean by extra, Guy-sensei? If I cannot do it, I will climb the Hokage mountain using only my teeth." "That's the spirit, Lee. Continue onward with the sword of determination, and your flame will never be extinguished." "Guy-sensei, Lee, Guy-sensei, Lee." Naruto's eye twitched as he watched those two hug each other while a sunset genjutsu played behind them. Old man was going to pay for this. For all the man's faults, Mato Guy didn't lie when he said Naruto would feel the fires of youth igniting inside of him by the time they were done. He could indeed feel the fire burning within him. It seared his lungs with every breath he took and was slowly burning him alive if his muscles were any indication. He lay sprawled on the ground, inhaling little pieces of dirt and grass with every ragged breath he took, unable to move a single finger. These two were completely and totally insane. Where in the name of all that is holy are they getting all that stamina? Naruto-kun! Shouted Lee. Can't these people ever communicate in normal volume? Do not despair. If you train hard enough you will be keeping up with us in no time, Lee, growled Naruto crankily. First of all, you're older than me, making you further into puberty than me. Meaning you acquire muscle mass a lot easier than I do. You're taller than me, so your steps are longer too, meaning that it's a lot easier for you to run faster than me over comparable distances. And finally, you've been doing this kind of thing for how long, 2 years? That's one hell of a starting advantage, Lee. Bottom point is, it would be years before I can match your endurance, even if I decided to train at the same pace you do. Lee shuffled in place, confused. Naruto could see that the boy worshipped his sensei and didn't really consider his opinions so much as imported them whole from Guy. And Guy was clearly prone to exuberance and fanciful proclamations. True, said Guy, who somehow seated himself in a lotus position beside Naruto without him noticing. Lee's genius of hard work is hard to match. But you don't have train as hard as he does to make your fires burn far brighter than they do now. Naruto looked at Guy incredulously. His voice was calm and authoritative, even if he was still abusing fire analogies. I already train, said Naruto flatly, ignoring his screaming muscles as he pushed himself to a sitting position. Lee was already sitting beside him, ready to soak up the wisdom of his idol. That much is obvious, agreed Guy. The fire in you burns far brighter than I have seen in a long time. Nevertheless, it is obvious that your training mostly consists of sparring. Naruto looked at Guy strangely. How could you tell? Remember your sparring session with Lee? More like a beatdown, mumbled Naruto unhappily. Lee wasn't using anything remotely like Academy standard and his strikes were unblockable. Every hit felt like he was punched by a sack of bricks, if he was even able to intercept it at all. That sort of punching power was completely at odds with Lee's age and body size, so Naruto could only conclude he was using some weird technique to amplify his punches. In any case, the choppy movement that Lee displayed clearly told Naruto that Lee was holding back big time. He didn't even want to think what he would look like if Lee went all out on him. Your movements were good, commented Guy, but it was clear your body couldn't match your intentions. Academy standard, when practiced in isolation, tends to overdevelop the chest and shoulder muscles, leading to unbalanced musculature that hampers your movement and posture, and could easily lead to injury. In the interest of your fighting ability, but also your health, you need to develop your whole body, and that will require simple training exercises like running and sit-ups. I will assemble a training regimen for you by the end of the week. Naruto paled. If his simple training regimen is anything like his evening exercises, there was no way Naruto could keep up with it. Hopefully Guy wouldn't check up on him to make sure he was going along with it, yes? Secondly, said Guy, you need to do something about your clothes. Oh, come on, protested Naruto. You of all people. Guy stopped him with a wave of his hand. Orange is a good color, vibrant and youthful, befitting of someone who takes such joy in life. What I'm referring to is the poor condition of your garments. Your sandals are practically falling apart, and your jumpsuit is clearly a few sizes too small. If you can't afford new clothes, I would be happy to help out such a passionate young man in need. Naruto had the decency to look embarrassed. No, I have enough money. It's just inertia, I guess. I like these clothes. Why should I change what works? Guy's face grew serious. You can't achieve good traction with such poor sandals, and your jumpsuit limits your flexibility. It is also surely uncomfortable to be in, which dampens your spirit. Why don't you try a suit like me and Lee are wearing and you'll see? Thank you, Guy-san, but I think I'll try to find something on my own, said Naruto, waving his hands frantically. Very well, agreed Guy. Just remember, if you change your mind, I have plenty of these in all possible sizes. Naruto was pretty sure he isn't changing his mind. He's buying new clothes tomorrow, if nothing else then just so Guy doesn't get any funny ideas. At worst he'll have a spare set of clothes for when his jumpsuit is dirty. When Naruto came home that night, he knew there would be heavy consequences for all that exertion in the morning, so he didn't bother setting up an alarm clock. He slept in and didn't go to the academy, opting to shop for a new wardrobe instead. He could barely get out of bed because of his body hurt all over. Damn Guy and his so-called exercises. His muscles will decompose if he keeps this up throughout the whole week of punishment. Like he suspected, his orange jumpsuit was unique and not sold anywhere in Konoha, so he settled for a bright orange shirt and dark green pants, with 2 pairs of sandals for footwear. He was quite proud of his choice. Actually, the pants and sandals were standard ninja wear, while the shirt provided a personal touch that identified him definitely as Naruto. He would sew in his Uzumaki spiral into it when he gets back home. Grudgingly, he admitted to himself that guy was right. He was a lot more comfortable in his new outfit, even if it felt a bit strange after wearing the jumpsuit for so long. Despite the fact that every muscle in his body hurt from yesterday's workout, he dutifully reported to the archive to do his paperwork, and had no intention of skipping on Guy's next exercise session. Evading those felt too much like giving up for Naruto's tastes. He wanted to face the old man at the end of this with the face of someone who dealt with everything thrown at him and wasn't broken in the process. Sadly, it didn't work on Guy. Every time Naruto went that extra mile to show the man he still has the will to fight, Guy took that as a sign that he's ready for more challenges. More running, more sit-ups, more sparring, more everything. He spent all his free time lying around because he was too sore to do anything, and the man actually had the temerity to imply that this sort of behavior was healthy. Fortunately, there was one thing he could still do while not moving much, and that's experimenting with his chakra control. This is where Hinata was very useful, since she knew quite a lot about the human chakra system, thanks to belonging to a clan that could see both the chakra coils and chakra being molded. She did mumble something about such information being classified as a clan secret, but he pretended not to hear her, and she pretended not to have said it. All things considered, being constantly on the verge of collapse because of muscle aches was getting rather tiresome. He really was thankful that there was only one more session with Guy left. All he had to do was survive this one, and everything would get back to normal. Yamanaka Ino was manning the counter at her family flower shop, wishing for something interesting to happen, when Uzumaki Naruto walked through the door, asking if she has any potted plants that bloom orange flowers. Well, she certainly got her wish. After she was sure it wasn't some lame attempt to hit on her, she would die if he started giving her his Sakura routine, she moved in with interrogations. There was a lot of gossip and speculation going on about the blonde. After all, his sudden improvement, his change in personality, the way he approached Hinata, and, most recently, his change in wardrobe. She initially wanted to use her considerable talking skill to stall for time and get him to reveal his secret, but that turned out to be unnecessary. The blonde gave answers freely, and didn't seem in a hurry to leave. Some people might be too polite to probe in such private matters, but once Ino realized she got Naruto in a talkative mood, she pressed on. Strangely enough, the blonde agreed with her that he was an idiot for most of their time at the academy. He changed because the Hokage told him he was disappointed at him. Apparently the aging leader was the only person Naruto respected, and his disapproval hit him hard. When she playfully asked whether he was sure she wasn't someone he respected too, he flat out told her no. He said that, at the time, he considered her a traitor for breaking up with Sakura over Sasuke. To his credit, he immediately said he realizes now this was a stupid way of seeing things, but he ruined it by saying they're both stupid for breaking up a friendship over a boy. That hurt. It hurt a lot, because she felt largely the same. She proceeded to explain at length that it was Sakura who decided to break their friendship, not her, but it sounded hollow even to her. She could have nipped that thing in the bud if she wanted to. Even now she doesn't know why she went along with it. She would have been angry at the orange kid, but she could see he didn't mean to antagonize. She was being rather direct, and he responded in kind. She probed into his reasons for giving up on Sakura. He said he realized pursuing her was self-destructive. Originally he just intended to back off for a while, but after a while his feelings for her simply petered out. Ino thought that was rather sad, but she knew better than to say that. Naruto didn't belittle her desire to win Sasuke's heart, so the least she could do is not question his romantic choices. That's why she didn't pry into whatever he was doing with Hinata. Well, that's not really true. She didn't do it because she was honestly afraid of what the timid little Hyuga would do to her if she found out Ino had been pestering Naruto about her. She already tried to extract the truth of the matter by cornering Hinata with a few of her friends, but for once in her life Hinata stood up for herself and told them all to go fuck themselves and leave her alone because what she does with Naruto-kun is none of their damn business. She never saw the Hyuga as angry as she was that day, and she didn't want to face her like that ever again. Then about an hour and a half into their conversation she suddenly realized she revealed a staggering amount of personal information to Naruto without even realizing it. The background of her rivalry with Sakura, the names of the girls in their class she got along best, her opinions of half a dozen of their classmates, her favorite type of flower, and even when her damn birthday was. All this time she thought she was the one pulling the strings, but the sneaky brat was playing her without her realizing it, her, the queen of gossip. From that point on, the whole thing turned into a game of maneuvering each other into revealing more personal details. Naruto clearly noticed the change in tone and dropped the illusion of naivete, smirking at her the whole time they were at it. In the end he grew tired of it before she did, which Ino marked down as a victory for herself. She handed him a plant that blooms fairly often and was easy to take care of. It was so hard to kill that some people considered it a weed, being next to impossible to eradicate one planted in open ground, and bid him goodbye. But before he left, he let something extremely interesting slip by. "You're sparring with Shikamaru?" she asked incredulously. She never heard of this before. She thought she knew everything there is to know about the lazy Nara. "Every week," Naruto said as he inspected the plant. "I don't believe you. There is no way Shikamaru would let himself be talked into physical exertion, especially regular one." "He lost a bet," Ino grinned. "Shikamaru sparring in his free time." This she had to see. Fortunately, Naruto made no secret about the time and place, so the next time they were meeting she showed up there to watch. Shikamaru was annoyed by her presence, and that only made her happier. Annoying Shikamaru was one of her hobbies. He deserved to be annoyed, but the really curious thing was who else was there: Chuji, Kiba, Shino, and Hinata. That was quite a gathering. There seemed to be quite a large hole in her gossip network if something like this could happen right under her nose without her knowing about it. In any case, it was mighty amusing watching Shikamaru lose to Naruto, but it was clear he wasn't really trying. His moves were sloppy and sluggish. He was unmotivated, which was no surprise to Ino, who had intimate knowledge on the Nara. Kiba lost against Naruto too, as he was wont to do lately, but the Orange Kid was soundly defeated by the Aburame. It was fun, and the only thing that would have made this better would have been Sasuke coming along and showing these boys what a real ninja fight like. But Sasuke had better things to do with his time, so that task fell onto her. Fighting Shikamaru wasn't any fun, since you could never get him to do it for real. Kiba said it was beneath him to fight girls, or something to that effect, and Ino retorted she didn't want to touch a flea bag like him anyway. After a brief verbal spar, she found out that there was only one person brave enough to face her, Naruto. That was kind of disappointing, since she was fairly certain she could stomp the dead last into the ground without trying, but it would serve as a demonstration. She was in for a rude awakening. It should have occurred to her that Naruto wasn't the dead last anymore, but old habits are hard to break. Naruto was good. She didn't quite notice that while she watched him fight, but now that she was fighting against him she could see that his recent improvement wasn't just luck. But far more shocking thing than his skill was that Naruto didn't hold back at all. Konoha's Ninja Academy had separate sparring groups for boys and girls. Boys fought boys, girls fought girls. The academy excuse was that boys had a strength advantage, but Ino always felt this was a way of preserving boys' fragile egos in the face of their inevitable defeat from people like her. The few times she asked her father about it she got the notion it was a political thing, just like the fact that female students had infiltration classes about proper manners and flower arrangement. Something about civilian members of the council feeling the academy doesn't teach female ninja how to be girl enough, or equally moronic reasons. Ino didn't like it, but she didn't want to rock the boat needlessly. After all, she did fancy herself as an infiltration-type ninja. Let those girls who wanted to be combat-oriented stand up for themselves. In any case, there was no rule against male and female students sparring against each other, but no guy really wanted to do it. If a guy won, he was criticized for beating up girls. If he lost, he was ridiculed for losing against a girl. The only guy Ino had a chance to fight was Shikamaru, when they were alone and nobody could see them, but it was always her attacking him, and him half-heartedly defending. There was no danger to it, except maybe to her pride, and she knew it. Naruto lunged at her with viciousness and deliberation that was completely foreign to her. If he had any doubts about hitting a girl he didn't show it, because he was punching and kicking and pushing her back, and she found herself unable to deal with it. It was downright terrifying to fight against someone like that. The academy instructors, her father, her female classmates, none of them fought like this. She collapsed to the ground as Naruto slipped past her guard and planted a solid punch to her stomach. As she struggled to catch her breath, she could hear Kiba chewing Naruto out for being too rough with her. It made her unutterably angry. Had she stooped so low that she has to be defended by Kiba? She wouldn't stand for it. She didn't want to be some delicate princess that everyone needs to tiptoe around. She wanted to be a ninja, a great ninja, and no one is going to respect her if she can't even handle Naruto, of all people. Weekly sparring sessions, he said? Well, he just got another sparring partner. Like Naruto suspected, Guy's training schedule was ridiculous. Nevertheless, Naruto wasn't willing to completely throw it away, so he simply divided all the figures in the schedule by 4 and took that as his target. Even that proved to be a bit too optimistic, but at least he was doing some exercises, and Guy thankfully never bothered to check if Naruto was playing along. He did, however, tell Shino all about the amazing taijutsu specialist, freely handing out training advice to everyone who asks and how to contact him, conveniently forgetting to mention Guy's peculiarities. It was his way of living up to his title as the king of pranks. Shino gave him the cold treatment for 2 days afterwards, but Naruto did find out later that Shino got his own exercise advice from Guy, which he was dutifully adhering to. Worked harder at it than Naruto, actually. In Naruto's defense, he had better things to do with his time than running laps around Konoha. Once the whole commotion about Naruto's actions died out, Sasori and Kabuto contacted him again, eager to make up for the time lost. Naruto was up to his ears in lessons from those two, and of course, who can forget the day Hinata actually decided to start sparring with him? It was rather obvious that the main reason she was doing this was because Ino started attending the sparring sessions. The Hyuga was, to put it bluntly, jealous. Of course, Naruto wouldn't have anything to do with someone like Ino even if his life was at stake, but Hinata didn't need to know that. He was going to milk her little bout of jealousy for all it's worth. It was manipulative, perhaps, but she'll be better off for it. At first he was afraid Hinata's reluctance was a consequence of her knowing she would be hopelessly outmatched, much like Ino was, which would be a major problem. The last thing Hinata needed was to have her confidence torn down by having her crush beat the crap out of her. But Naruto never really learned how to hold back, having spent most of his years fighting against superior opponents against whom every advantage was needed. It would be painfully obvious if he decided not to take her seriously, and thus the judgment would not carry any weight. Fortunately, Hinata seemed really determined to show her worth. And she had something to show indeed. She was very quick and good at dodging. Nimble too. He didn't know human body could bend that way without snapping. And then Hinata delivered 3 fast strikes on his arm and torso, and it was all over. To say he was shocked would be an understatement. The places she hit burned like they were splashed with acid, and his arm was hanging uselessly against his side. He knew, intellectually, the way Yukin functions, but to know it and to feel it, a whole different world. As much as he tried to improvise after this, the truth was that the battle was decided in Hinata's favor right then and there. It was like fighting Lee all over again. Her strikes were unblockable because her mere touch hurt you, and she was so damn fast you couldn't really dodge. Gentle Fist truly was a fearsome style. Ino was incredibly irked that both Naruto and Hinata were suddenly so much better than her, and when she finally talked Shino in sparring with her and lost in less than a minute, she finally snapped. She cornered Naruto after one session and demanded that he tell her how they got so much better in such a short time. Trying his hardest not to laugh, he gave her direction to find Anko and Guy. He was looking forward to her reaction to meeting them, but the next week she was just strangely subdued and never brought the subject up again. Pity. Naruto shuffled in place uncomfortably, checking how sure his footing was on the rocky sand. Sasori's training in the sand-walking exercise worked like a charm, and now it was almost like he was on solid ground. He had already memorized the position on various rock outcroppings and thought of some general strategies. Sasori stood several meters in front of him, calmly facing him. The older boy stood still, his eyes boring into Naruto, challenging him to make the first move. And then it begun. In a practice movement perfected over the last 2 weeks, Naruto unrolled a storage scroll and pumped chakra into the seal. When the smoke cleared, Naruto was standing with a large wooden snake wrapped protectively around him. Its disturbingly human-like head clacked threateningly in Sasori's direction. Naruto grinned. He was quite proud of himself for making Naga, inspired by the clacking faces of Sasori's own puppets and Anko's snake summons. Sasori had said that a great deal of puppets' effectiveness comes psychological warfare induced by the wrongness of the puppet, and Naruto couldn't think anything more wrong than this. Naga was actually the 33rd puppet Naruto made, but the less said about previous ones the better. Naruto liked to think of them as experiments to see what fits his fighting style. The segmented, flexible body was actually Sasori's design that Naruto appropriated for his purposes. Its body was tough and flexible, perfect for withstanding punishment of all sorts, and its stinger-tipped tail could lash out with frightening speed, impaling and smashing anything bold enough to approach within melee range. There was little in the way of hidden weaponry, Naruto used up most of Naga's innards to install a flamethrower system that Naga could shoot out of its mouth. It was completely unlike the delicate precision-focused puppets that Sasori preferred, and which weren't really suited for Naruto. He much preferred Naga's brute force. Back when he first showed the designs to Sasori, he had expected the puppeteer to be unimpressed, but Sasori merely remarked he had made defensive puppets too in the past. At first, Naruto didn't really understand what was so defensive about Naga, but it was obvious in retrospect. Naga was slow and powerful, and thus not something useful for pursuit and maneuvering. Naruto struggled to get a grip on Naga for a fraction of a second, and Sasori used that time to summon two of his own puppets to his left and right. Naruto resisted the urge to scowl. He still wasn't very proficient in handling puppets. It didn't help that Naga was particularly tricky because of its non-humanoid shape. With barely a twitch on his fingers, Sasori sent his puppets after Naruto. The left puppet's hand flowered open and sent a hail of needles in Naruto's direction. Naga's tail lazily knocked them down out of the air, even as the right puppet drew a sword seemingly out of nowhere. As they clashed, Naga's tail smashed into the left puppet, causing its chest to cave in instantly. It fell on the ground inert. The tricky thing about using a defensive puppet like Naga was that confrontations happened dangerously close to the puppeteer. Normally puppeteers use defensive puppets in conjunction with more mobile attack ones, but Naruto really had only enough skill to control one at the time. Unsurprisingly, Sasori seemed determined to demonstrate to Naruto the weakness of his choice, and thus the puppets he sent aimed for Naruto, not Naga. Fortunately, Naruto had a secret weapon. He was actually able to move somewhat while controlling Naga. It was hard to control your puppets and move at the same time. Even Sasori, the greatest master of the art, as he often said, preferred to sit back while focusing on controlling his puppets. But Naga wasn't really dependent on precision as much as puppets that Sasori used, so Naruto could move around a bit without losing control. The remaining puppet took a swing at Naruto, but he dodged the strike with ease and tugged at the chakra strings connected to Naga. Its tail wrapped around the puppet's torso and squeezed, causing the wooden construct to break in half. Just as he was about to advance at Sasori, the ground to his left erupted into dust and a clanking four-armed puppet lunged at him. Sasori must have placed that puppet before Naruto even came, but that itself wouldn't have been so bad if the puppet whose chest he caved in didn't suddenly come to life in front of him, blade sticking out of its wrist. If it weren't for his instinctive reactions and Naga's tail, the puppet would have skewered him right then and there. Naruto felt sick. Sasori was taking this really seriously, too seriously. After dispatching the damaged puppet, he turned his attention to the ambushed puppet, noticing Sasori summon 6 more puppets out of the corner of his eye. This puppet was an actual combat puppet, one of the standardized puppets Sasori created. This was bad because those puppets were loaded with secret weaponry, most of them poisoned. Sasori wouldn't use the really nasty ones on him, would he? Barely withstanding the puppet's onslaught, it was too fast for Naga to target effectively, and wearily keeping an eye on the 6 new puppets advancing on his location. Naruto was horrified when the chest of the puppet he was fighting slid open to reveal a tube. A gas dispenser? No! Without hesitation, Naruto whipped out one of his secret weapons and slapped the tag onto the puppet, pumping chakra into it. The seal inscribed on the tag took effect immediately, burning out the delicate network of seals that covered the insides of the puppet and allowed a puppeteer to control it through chakra strings. Its control mechanisms burned out, the puppet slumped to the ground inert, and then he threw 4 kunai at the rapidly approaching puppets. The puppets didn't even try to dodge, as a kunai isn't particularly effective against them, but that was a mistake. Naruto lightly pulled on the chakra strings connected to the explosive seals inscribed on the kunai, and they exploded without warning, taking out the puppets with them. Ah yes, he did love his explosive kunai. It was so simply really, all he had to do was add an anchor seal to the array, and he could manipulate seals on distance. So what he did was place explosive seals on a bunch of kunai, and set them on instant overload. Pull a chakra strong connected to them and they explode instantly, no countdown, no warning, no telltale signs. They were indistinguishable from normal kunai without close examination, except by Byakugan users. The look on Sasori's face was priceless. Naruto had intended to save the puppet-destroying tag and the explosive kunai for later, but it was obvious this wasn't the sort of fight where you could hold back. Sasori lowered his head in a threatening manner, and unsealed no less than 10 standardized puppets. It was a valiant battle on his part, in Naruto's opinion. He used all 4 of his puppet-destroying tags, about 12 explosive notes, and destroyed 7 more of Sasori's puppets. In the end, he was knocked out by a shower of needles coated in poison that caused Naruto to lose everything he ate before meeting Sasori. Those tags were an interesting touch, said Sasori. Naruto felt his stomach churn and suppressed the urge to vomit again. I got the idea when I was building Naga. I had to reinforce all the seals or the whole mesh would overload when I lost concentration and pumped more chakra than necessary into it. I figured it would be an effective attack vector against other puppets as well. Sasori nodded. The explosive kunai were very lethal. You were using chakra strings to activate them, weren't you? Yes. I noticed you didn't use any of your special puppets. Those are for serious combat, not sparring. You call that sparring? You could have killed me, only because you weren't taking things seriously enough. Humph. Anyway, we fought, just like you wanted. Did I do well enough? It was tolerable. Your puppeteering is meager, but you've got a very inventive art. Naruto grinned. He didn't think of himself as an artist, personally, but he knew that Sasori doesn't call people artists lightly. He was being praised, and it felt good. Oh, so I'm finally worthy of calling myself an artist, huh? Does that mean you'll finally explain those special dolls of yours? Not yet. You're not even able to control more than one puppet at the time. Fine, Naruto said. You know, after surviving this, passing the Jonin exam tomorrow should be child's play. Perhaps, said Sasori. For what is worth, I think you're quite ready to graduate. Just remember that if Konoha decides to fail you, you can always the village with me. Thanks, said Naruto. I don't think that will be necessary, but it means a lot to me. Really, his graduation was all but guaranteed.